Hello and welcome to Star Diary, the podcast from the makers of BBC Sky at Night magazine. You can subscribe to the digital edition of the magazine by visiting iTunes, Google Play or Apple News, or to the print edition by visiting skyatnightmagazine.com.
Greetings, listeners, and welcome to Star Diary, a weekly guide to the best things to see in the Northern Hemisphere's night sky. As we are based here in the UK, all times are in BST. In this episode, we'll be covering the coming week from the 14th to the 20th of April. I'm features editor Ezzy Pearson, and I'm joined this week by astronomy writer Mary McIntyre. Hello, Mary.
Hi, Ezzy.
So, what do we have to look forward to in this week's night sky?
Loads going on this week again. We've got the moon visiting a teapot. We've got a little fish jumping towards a grinning cat. Some globular clusters on show. A minor meteor shower becomes active. And we're going to talk about why the poor scorpion had his claws chopped off.
Oh no, what happened to the scorpion? I'm sure we'll find out. But shall we get started with looking at the planets?
Yeah, so this week again we have Uranus in Taurus near the boundary with Aries, pretty much the same as it's been the last couple of weeks really, but it's now setting around 10:45 p.m. It's at mag 5.9, so you will need binoculars or a telescope to see it, or a long exposure photograph to pick up the dot that looks like a little star. It's moving very slowly, so it's not going to have moved a great deal over the last couple of weeks. Jupiter is still in Taurus, now setting at 12:45 a.m. It's faded a little bit to mag -2, but that's still a pretty good magnitude and very easy to spot. On Wednesday, the 16th of April at 10 p.m, the moon Ganymede, it will have been crossing Jupiter's disk, and it will leave the disk and become visible again to kind of small telescopes. Because if you're going to try and have a look at the moons actually crossing Jupiter, you need a really big telescope. But you will see the moons if they just transit the disk and then pop off the other side, they'll appear again. And that same night at 10:40 p.m, Callisto is going to clip Jupiter's south pole, so it won't quite transit Jupiter or go behind it. It's going to just literally graze the south pole. So if you're looking at that with binoculars, it obviously will be at the bottom of Jupiter. If you're looking at it telescopically, it will be at the top because everything gets flipped upside down. Mars is still in Gemini this week, and that is about 55 degrees above the southwest after sunset, so it's a good altitude and remains visible till 3:40 in the morning. It's around mag plus 6.5 by the end of this week, but that's still a reasonable magnitude, and it will be quite easy to spot, especially its very obvious red colour. Venus is still in the dawn sky. It lies in Pisces and is rising at 4:45, which is about 80 minutes before the sun. Although technically quite bright, it's going to be lost in the twilight, so you're probably going to need optical aids to spot it, or it certainly won't be as bright as the mag -4.7 figure that is often published. It will be very much lost in the twilight. Mercury, Saturn and Neptune are all in Pisces, but too close to the sun to observe this week. But interestingly, Mercury and Neptune have a super close conjunction on the 17th of April. They're only 0.7 degrees apart. Now, sadly, we can't see them, but we know that they're going to be very, very close together. Mercury is heading towards great and western elongation on the 21st of April, but it's kind of rising at a similar time to the sun, so it's not very easy to see right now. Minor planet Vesta is continuing its journey through Libra, heading towards opposition next month. It's rising at 9:55 p.m. and stays visible all night long. Still at mag plus 5.67, so you will need binoculars to see it. And it continues to increase the distance away from Zubin-Shimali. It's now 6.3 degrees away from there, so it's very slowly edging away. Now, on the subject of Zubin-Shimali and Zubin-Elganubi, which I think are everybody's favourite star names in Libra.
They're definitely not my favourite to write. I've learned how to spell Zubin-Elganubi. Zubin-Shimali is still working on that one.
Yeah, these are Arabic names, like a lot of the great historic astronomers were from the Arabic world. The brighter stars of Libra, they are the alpha and beta stars within Libra, and they were once known as Celae, which translates as the claws. So if you've ever looked at Scorpius in the summer sky and thought, well, the scorpion's claw looks really small for a scorpion, that's because Zubin-Shimali and Zubin-Elganubi used to be the claws of Scorpius. But sometime around the 10th century, somebody basically chopped off part of Scorpius to fit in another constellation, to fit in with this idea that there had to be 12 zodiac constellations. So it came from the astrology world. So they kind of chopped it off and turned Libra into the scales, which is the only zodiac constellation that is an inanimate object. And they did that to squeeze in the extra one that they were determined had to be there for astrology purposes. So that is why the claw of Scorpius is really very small, because it used to have a much, much bigger claw that got carved up. But there's still great names, those two stars. I love saying them, I love pointing them out, and they're always fun to observe.
Yeah, it's the sort of history of the zodiac constellations is fascinating to look at, because you've got today there's the sort of like the constellations as determined by the International Astronomical Association, which is more like giant areas of sky which ascribe to the classical constellations, so that people have ways of chopping up the night sky. And there's actually 13 of those that go across what's called the ecliptic. So that's basically like the line that Earth makes as it goes around the sun. But we've still got 12 zodiac constellations in like astrology and things. And it's all very weirdly political how these things get.
Absolutely. But yeah, that's why Scorpius is tiny, because they had to chop stuff up to squeeze other ones in. And then, of course, the boundaries changed again when the IAU stepped in and formalized everything. So yeah, the history of them is kind of wild. And that's just the Greek ones. Like every culture in the world has divided the sky up differently. So it really is a fascinating subject.
We actually have a feature about that in our May issue of the magazine, Sky at Night magazine. So if you want to find out more about the constellations of the zodiac, all 13 of them, in fact, and all the best things to see in each of them are, then please do pick up that.
Moving on to the moon, we've got a waning gibbous moon all week because there was a full moon last Sunday and the first quarter is next Monday. So we've basically got the same phase all week. On Thursday, the 17th of April, the moon is 1.8 degrees below Antares before dawn. And on Saturday, the 19th of April, the moon lies in the teapot before dawn. So we're just starting to get the teapot above the horizon now as we're heading towards the spring and summer. So this week we have the Lyrids meteor shower, which is active from the 16th to the 25th of April. The peak is predicted on the 22nd of April at around 2 p.m. So pre-dawn on the 22nd is going to be the best night, but it is active, so you will be able to see meteors in the run-up to that. So this meteor shower is the remnants of debris left behind by Comet C 1861 G1 Thatcher. And the radiant of a meteor shower is usually named after the constellation that the meteors actually come from. So although this is called the Lyrids, because of this, as we talked about just before, when the IAU constellation boundaries came in, Hercules got divided up so that the radiant of the Lyrids meteor shower actually now lies in Hercules. But also radiants of meteor showers actually do drift over time as well. So a combination of those two things mean that the Lyrids meteor shower radiant is not actually in Lyra. But it's still in a similar part of the sky. And the reason that it's not a very prolific shower is that the radiant is quite low in the sky. The rates always go up before dawn with meteor showers anyway, because you're facing the debris stream on dawn side of the Earth. But the radiant gets higher before dawn as well. So with those two things together, you're going to have your best chance of seeing meteors after midnight. And definitely before dawn. Dark adaptation is super important for observing meteor showers, and you can, of course, take photographs, just continuously take photographs. And if you're lucky, you will get a meteor in one of them. Even during a prolific shower, I can take 4,000 photographs and get 12 meteors. So it can be a thankless task photographing meteor showers.
Because it's just so random and it's so chance. It could be the most prolific shower, as you said, and you get 12. It could be one where there's 18 meteors per hour and you get all of them. And you just don't know which way it's going to go.
They're completely random. And at best, this is going to be visually about 18 meteors per hour, which is certainly not the rates that we see with things like the Perseids, but still more than the background, which is around 2 or 3 sporadics per hour that you might see. So definitely worth observing, especially when we get kind of later in the week when we're heading towards the peak of that shower. Also, by the 16th and 17th of April, the moon isn't rising till after midnight. So we have a short window of opportunity to observe some deep sky objects before the moon interferes. So we're talking about the globular clusters, Messier 3 and Messier 53. These are both easily achievable in binoculars, but obviously a telescope will give you an even better view. M3 is one of the best globular clusters that we have in the Northern Hemisphere. It's around mag plus 6.3, so that's definitely within reach of binoculars. It lies just within Canis Venatici. So if you follow the line from Cor Caroli, which is the brightest star in Canis Venatici, follow that line down to Arcturus, which is an unmissably bright red giant star in Bootes. M3 is kind of halfway between them, and there are no bright stars in that field of view at all. So if you scan between those two stars, about halfway between, just look for something that looks like an out of focus star, and that is Messier 3. So globular clusters have got thousands of stars all gravitationally packed into, well, they look like they're in a ball when we look at them from here. They're usually very old stars, and I actually love them so much. We were imaging these two objects last night, in fact. They're really nice to look for. So great to have a look at those with binoculars or a telescope. M53 is a magnitude fainter at mag plus 7.7, but that's a bit easier to find because if you look for the star Diadem, that globular cluster lies 1 degree northeast of that. So Diadem is one of the stars of Coma Berenices. So that's a really nice one to look for as well. Good to compare the differences in magnitude between the two. No two globs look exactly the same. They're all just really fascinating and they are beautiful to photograph.
Yeah. I remember once we did a feature about it and it was called something like Diamonds on Velvet.
Yeah.
Because they're just these sparkling gems in the night sky.
It's funny, my husband doesn't particularly enjoy photographing them and I'm like, no, give me all of the globulars. I love them. So yeah, I'm looking forward to processing the images that we took of those last night. Finally, again, while the moon is out of the way, there's a couple of really nice asterisms that are easy to spot with binoculars in Auriga, and one of them is my favourite, and that is the leaping minnow. So as you look towards the central part of the lower half of Auriga, near the boundary between the bottom two stars, where it kind of shares a star with Taurus, you can kind of see, it looks like a miniature Delphinus constellation. It's a tiny fish that is called the leaping minnow. It looks like it's leaping up out of a cluster of stars, and it's actually heading towards another asterism called the Cheshire Cat, where you've got some stars that are sideways on that have got two eyes and a really wide smiling mouth that look like the Cheshire Cat. So the Cheshire Cat is probably grinning because the minnow is jumping straight towards him and he's probably going to have a tasty snack.
I do wonder if those two got named together at some point.
Yeah, I know. I sometimes hear it called the leaping minnow and splash because that little cluster of stars, when Auriga is orientated differently, looks like the fish is about to jump into the water.
Yeah.
Whatever way you describe it, it's a beautiful asterism to look for and it's really obvious in binoculars. And even if there's a bit of moonlight, you can still see that. I've done it myself under a bit of moonlight, but better when the moon's out of the way. So yeah, definitely look for that towards the end of the week before the moon rises. And I love these asterisms. They're just, again, very poetic and tell a story.
I think especially with that one, because it shows you the importance of orientation and like how you're viewing them. And one way it looks like a leaping minnow going into a Cheshire Cat, and another way it looks like it's into a splash just by, changing the angle of the sky, which is very important, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, as always, there were lots of great things to see in the night sky there. Thank you very much for taking us through all of that, Mary. If our listeners would like to get even more stargazing tips, please do subscribe to the podcast because we'll be back here next week, this time with Katrin Rayner. But to summarise this week again, we start on Wednesday, the 16th of April at 10 p.m, where you can look for Ganymede appearing as it leaves Jupiter's disk. Then at 10:40 p.m, Callisto clips Jupiter's southern pole. On Thursday, the 17th of April, the moon lies 1.8 degrees below Antares. On Friday, the 18th of April, look for the leaping minnow and the Cheshire Cat in Auriga before moonrise. On Saturday, the 19th, you can observe M3 and M53, two globular clusters, before moonrise around midnight. After midnight, the moon lies in the Teapot asterism. On Sunday, the 20th of April, we're getting closer to the peak of the Lyrids meteor shower as well, so do keep an eye out for those meteors. That's it from us, from all of us here at Sky at Night magazine. Goodbye. If you want to find out even more spectacular sights that will be gracing the night sky this month, be sure to pick up a copy of BBC Sky at Night magazine, where we have a 16-page pull-out sky guide with a full overview of everything worth looking up for throughout the whole month. Whether you like to look at the moon, the planets, or the deep sky, whether you use binoculars, telescopes, or neither, our Sky Guide has got you covered, with detailed star charts to help you track your way across the night sky. From all of us here at BBC Sky at Night magazine, goodbye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Star Diary podcast from the makers of BBC Sky at Night magazine. For more of our podcasts, visit our website at skyatnightmagazine.com/podcasts or head to Spotify, iTunes, or your favourite podcast player.